Hey guys, tonight we're going to talk about what happens after a great plague. We often focus on the dramatic, horrifying stories of the pandemic itself, the sickness, the fear, the overflowing graveyards. But what about the survivors? What happens when the bells stop tolling and the dead carts stop their rounds, and you are left to pick up the pieces in a world that has been shattered tonight? We're exploring the brutal, grinding economic depression that followed one of the worst pandemics in human history. The Plague of Justinian. It's a story not of sudden death, but of slow, quiet decay. A story of empty workshops, of silent ports, of coins that lose their value, of a world where the most basic goods become unaffordable luxuries. And let's be honest, you probably wouldn't have survived the post-plague economy. Forget the disease itself. You'd likely be undone by the hyperinflation, the collapsed supply chains, and a job market where the only position with any real long-term security is subsistence farmer on an abandoned plot of land. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. It's a quiet and simple way to support the channel. And while you're at it, I'd love to see where and when you're tuning in from. Go ahead and drop your city and local time in the comments. It's always a little fascinating to see our community of history lovers spread across the globe. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your world is a universe of color and light, held together by plaster and patience. You are a mosaicarius, a master mosaic artisan in the greatest, richest, and most magnificent city on earth, Constantinople, the capital of the Roman Empire. The year is 541 AD, and you are living in a golden age. Your emperor, Justinian, is a man of boundless, almost terrifying, ambition. He is not just a ruler, he is a builder, a restorer. He is reconquering the lost western provinces of Italy and Africa, reclaiming the lands of the old empire. He is codifying 1,000 years of Roman law, and here in the capital, he is building on a scale of magnificence that has not been seen in centuries. The city is a great, roaring construction site, a testament to a new Roman glory, and you are a key part of it. You are a master of your craft, a highly skilled and respected artist. Your workshop is sought after by wealthy senators and pious bishops to decorate their private chapels and villas. But your current commission is the greatest of them all. You and your team of apprentices have been chosen to work on the most ambitious building project in the history of the world, the new Cathedral of the Holy Wisdom, the Hagia Sophia. The old church was destroyed just a few years ago in the Nika riots, a week of fire and bloodshed that nearly toppled the emperor himself. But from those ashes, Justinian is building a new church so grand, so breathtaking, that it is designed to stun the world into submission. And you are the one who will make its interior shimmer with the light of heaven. Your days are spent high on a scaffold, deep within the cavernous, still unfinished interior of the great church. The air is cool and smells of wet plaster, of sawdust, of the faint, sweet scent of the incense burned during the workers' daily prayers. The space is filled with the sounds of 1,000 artisans at work, the chipping of the stonemasons, the hammering of the carpenters, the shouts of the foremen. It is an ordered, disciplined, and deeply satisfying chaos. Your art is slow, meticulous, and requires immense skill. Your paint is stone. Your canvases are the great, curving walls and the impossibly vast dome that seems to float, as if by a miracle, high above your head. You work with tesserae, small, hand-cut cubes of colored glass, of marble, of stone. Your apprentices mix the plaster, applying a small, workable section to the wall. And then you, the master, begin your work. You take each small cube, each tessera, and you press it, one by one, into the wet plaster. You do not place them flat. You have learned the secret of your craft. You set each one at a slightly different, almost imperceptible, angle, so that when the light from the high windows hits the wall, the surface will not just have color, it will have life. It will shimmer. It will move. It will glitter like a field of jewels. Your most precious material is the gold leaf tesserae. This is the detail that truly sets your Byzantine art apart. You have seen how they are made. A master glassblower creates a sheet of glass. A skilled artisan lays a perfect, paper-thin sheet of pure gold leaf onto it. And then, another thin layer of molten glass is carefully poured over the top, sealing the gold forever within its transparent prison. This sheet is then cooled and cut into thousands of tiny, glittering cubes. Each one is a tiny, captured piece of the sun, and you are using hundreds of thousands of them to create the golden, heavenly background for the great images of the saints and the angels. The amount of gold being used in this single building could probably buy a small kingdom. You make a mental note to have your apprentices sweep the floor beneath your scaffold very carefully at the end of each day. Your life is good. Your craft is respected. Your patron, the emperor himself, is the wealthiest and most ambitious man in the world. Your city of Constantinople is the center of that world. Its great harbor of the Golden Horn filled with ships from Egypt, from Syria, from the lands of the Greeks. The city is safe, protected by its immense triple line of defensive walls. Well, the empire is strong, its armies victorious. And you, a master artist, have a lifetime of work ahead of you, decorating the capital of a restored and eternal Roman Empire. You stand on your high scaffold in the evening, looking down at the work you have completed that day. A small section of the Archangel Gabriel's golden wing. The light from a nearby lantern catches the angled faces of your tesserae, and the wing seems to shimmer, to tremble with a divine, inner life. You are not just decorating a building, you are crafting a vision of heaven on earth. You are at the absolute pinnacle of your profession, in the greatest city in the world, in what everyone agrees is a new golden age. It is a world that feels solid, permanent, and divinely protected. You do not know. No one could possibly know. That a world away, in the port of Pelusium in the Roman province of Egypt, a few infected rats have scurried off a grain ship that has just arrived from the south. You do not know that a disease of unimaginable virulence, the bubonic plague, has entered the empire's breadbasket. And you do not know that the thousands of tons of grain that are shipped from Egypt each year to feed the magnificent, hungry, and entirely dependent city of Constantinople are now carrying a new and invisible cargo in their holds. They are carrying the plague. They are carrying the end of your world. You finish your work for the day, your mind filled with designs for the flowing robes of a saint, with calculations of the amount of blue glass you will need for the sky. You walk home through the bustling, brilliantly lit streets of your capital, a city at the very height of its power and its glory. The air is filled with the scent of spices in the sea. The future seems as bright and as solid as the gold on the walls of your great church. You are a happy man in a blessed city, and you have no idea that you are living in the final moments of a golden afternoon, just before the coming of a long and terrible night. The golden age you inhabit feels as solid and as eternal as the marble columns of the new Hagia Sophia. The work on the great church continues through the winter and into the spring of 542 AD, high on your scaffold. You and your apprentices continue your slow, meticulous work of painting with light and stone, creating a heaven on earth for your emperor and your god. The first hint of trouble arrives as a rumor, carried on the same ships that bring you your grain from Egypt and your spices from the east. The sailors speak of a terrible sickness that has erupted in the port of Pelusium. On the very edge of the empire, they speak of a pestilence of fevers and swellings, a disease that kills with terrifying speed. You and the other citizens of Constantinople pay it little mind. Sickness is always present in the far-flung, hot and crowded provinces of the empire. But your city, the queen of cities, is different. It is the heart of the world, protected by its great walls, by its powerful emperor, and by God himself. Such things do not happen here. But the pestilence does not travel by land. It does not need to assault your great walls. It travels by sea. A secret, invisible passenger in the holds of the grain ships. It travels in the blood of the black rats and in the guts of the fleas that live in their fur. It is an unseen army, and it is sailing directly for your home. It arrives in the city not with a roar, but with a whisper. A few dock workers in the crowded harbor district fall ill. Then a few sailors. Then the families who live in the cramped wooden tenements near the docks. At first, it is dismissed as a common fever, a minor affliction of the poor. The city's physicians are not concerned, but then the numbers begin to grow. The whispers become a murmur of anxiety. The sickness is spreading from the harbor into the heart of the city with an unnatural speed. It moves from house to house, from street to street, and its symptoms are horrifying. You see it for the first time when one of your own apprentices, a young boy from a poor family, fails to arrive for work. You go to his family's small apartment to investigate. You find the boy in his bed, his body burning with a fever so intense he does not recognize you. He is delirious. Speaking of demons and shadows, and on his neck, below his ear, is a hard, swollen, and dark-colored lump. A bubo. The contemporary historian, Procopius, who lived through this very plague, would describe its arrival and its symptoms with a chilling, clinical precision. You are now a first-hand witness to his account. You see the fever, the delirium, the telltale swellings in the groin, the armpits, the neck. You see the victims suffer for a few agonizing days, and then you see them die. Some fall into a deep coma. Others are seized by a violent, frantic madness, throwing themselves from their own rooftops or into the sea within a month. The city of Constantinople is in the grip of a full-blown, catastrophic epidemic. The confident, bustling, and vibrant city you knew vanishes, replaced by a place of fear, of silence, and of death. All work stops. Your own workshop falls silent. Your beautiful glass tesserae lying in their trays, covered in a fine layer of dust. The great construction site of the Hagia Sophia, once a hive of activity, is now deserted. Its vast interior echoing and empty. The markets close. The shops are shuttered. The great boulevards, once filled with crowds, are now empty. Save for the occasional terrified figure hurrying on some grim errand, the only sound that is constant is the tolling of the church bells, a relentless, city-wide funeral dirge. The Emperor Justinian and his government are utterly overwhelmed. They try to maintain order, but the social fabric of the city is disintegrating. The system for dealing with the dead is the first thing to collapse. At first, there are proper burials, but the graveyards fill up in a matter of days. The authorities begin to dig grate, open pits outside the city walls to hold the dead. Soon, even this is not enough. The men who are tasked with digging the pits and burying the dead are themselves dying. Procopius writes that at the peak of the plague, the death toll reached 5,000 people a day, and then 10,000. Future historians will debate these numbers. Were they an accurate count, or the understandable hyperbole of a traumatized eyewitness trying to convey an unimaginable horror? You, living through it, do not care about the precise numbers. You only see the result. The city is running out of places to put its dead. The government makes a desperate decision. They begin to use the fortified towers that are built into the city's great defensive walls as charnel houses. You watch as the dead carts, piled high with bodies, rumble to the base of these towers. The bodies are taken inside. The roofs of the towers are removed, and the dead are simply thrown in, layer upon layer, until the towers are filled to the brim with a putrefying mass of human flesh. When the towers are full, the emperor orders the bodies to be loaded onto barges, taken out into the Sea of Marmara, and simply thrown overboard. The beautiful waters that surround your city become a vast, floating graveyard. Your own life becomes a nightmare of fear and survival. The plague enters your own home, Your apprentices fall ill, then your wife, then your children. You are no longer an artist, a master craftsman. You are a helpless caregiver, tending to your feverish, dying family, bringing them water, listening to their delirious cries. You pray to God, to the Virgin Mary, to the saints whose images you have so lovingly crafted in gold and glass. But your prayers are met with silence. You see your neighbors turning to older, pagan superstitions. You see them wearing amulets. You hear stories of people seeing demons in the streets, shadowy figures who they believe are spreading the pestilence. In the face of a horror it cannot understand, the human mind will invent its own, more comprehensible monsters. And then you fall sick yourself. The fever takes you. The world dissolves into a confusing, painful haze. You are hot, then you are cold. You are racked with a pain so deep it feels like your very bones are breaking. You are thirsty, so thirsty, but you are too weak to lift a cup to your own lips. You are aware of the swellings on your own body, the hard, hot knots of the buboes. You drift in and out of consciousness. You are ready to die, and then, for no reason you can ever understand, the fever breaks. You wake up one morning, your sheets soaked with sweat. But the fire in your blood is gone. You are weak. You are emaciated. You are a ghost of your former self. But you are alive. You have survived, but your survival is a lonely one. Your wife is gone. Your 2 young sons are gone. Your apprentices are gone. You are the sole survivor of your own small world. You are a man who has lost everything. Your survival feels less like a miracle and more like a punishment. A cruel joke played by a merciless god. Slowly, after many weeks, the plague begins to recede from the city of Constantinople. The great fire of the epidemic, having consumed nearly half the city's population, perhaps as many as 300,000 people, begins to burn itself out for lack of fuel. The silence that follows the screaming and the wailing and the tolling of the bells is a strange and heavy thing. It is the silence of a city that is in a state of profound shock. You, a survivor, a widower, a father who has lost his children, a master who has lost his apprentices, finally emerge from your home. You walk through the streets of your city. It is a ghost town. The air is still foul with the stench of death. The great houses of the nobles are silent and shuttered. The workshops of the artisans are empty. You find your way to the Hagia Sophia. The great, unfinished cathedral stands silent, its vast interior empty save for the dust motes dancing in the shafts of light from the high windows. You look up at the small patch of the golden dome that you and your team had completed. The golden tiles glitter in the light, a small, brilliant, and heartbreakingly beautiful reminder of a different world, of a golden age that now seems 1,000 years away. The pestilence, the great unseen army, has retreated, but it has left behind a city, an empire, and a world that is broken. The biological crisis is over, and now, as you stand in the silence of the empty, magnificent church, you are about to face the long, slow, and grinding crisis that always follows a great dying, the economic crisis, the brutal depression that will be the plague's final and most lasting victory. The silence that descends upon Constantinople in the aftermath of the plague is a heavy, smothering blanket. The daily tolling of the funeral bells has ceased, but the quiet that remains is not one of peace. It is the profound, unnatural silence of absence. The sound of a city with half of its soul carved out. You are a survivor, a ghost. You walk through the familiar streets of your magnificent city, but it is a ghost town. The Great Mese, the central boulevard that was once a teeming river of humanity, is now a wide, empty space where your footsteps echo unnervingly. The shops of the merchants are shuttered. The workshops of the artisans are silent. The harbor, which was once a forest of mass from every corner of the known world, now holds only a few idle ships. Rocking silently on the tide, you return to your own workshop. It is empty. Your apprentices, your wife, your children. They are all gone, claimed by the pestilence. The small, colorful glass tesserae lie in their trays, covered in a fine layer of dust. The plaster on the practice walls has dried and cracked. The tools of your beautiful, intricate craft seem like relics from a different and impossibly distant lifetime. You survived the biological storm. Now, you must learn to survive the economic winter that follows. You and the other survivors emerge from your homes, blinking in the sunlight, and you begin to take stock of the new world. And it is a world that is fundamentally, irrevocably broken. The plague did not just kill people, it shattered the very foundations of the Roman economy. The Emperor Justinian himself survived the plague, a fact that is hailed by the court as a divine miracle. He is a man of immense energy and iron will, and he is determined to restart his empire. He emerges from the palace and he begins to issue a frantic, almost desperate series of new laws, new edicts designed to force his broken world back into its old shape. You, as a literate citizen, a master of a guild, read the edicts as they are posted in the forums, and you realize that the emperor, in his palace, does not understand the reality of the streets. The first and most pressing problem for the empire is money. The imperial treasury is empty. The plague has destroyed the state's tax base. The farmers, the merchants, the artisans, the people who actually paid the taxes that funded Justinian's great armies and his magnificent building projects are, for the most part, dead. The rich agricultural lands of Egypt and Syria, the empire's breadbasket, have been decimated. The flow of tax revenue into the capital has slowed to a trickle. Justinian's response is not one of mercy, but of brutal, legalistic necessity. You read a new law that is so cruel in its logic that you can barely comprehend it. It is a law of epibole, a grim and obscure piece of Roman legal theory. It states that surviving landowners are now legally responsible for the taxes on any abandoned or deserted land in their district. You must now pay the tax for your dead neighbor, and his dead neighbor, it is a law that punishes survival, a tax on being alive. The emperor's thinking is that the land must produce its revenue. Regardless of who is left to work it, it is an act of breathtaking desperation, and it will impoverish a generation of survivors. The second problem is labor. With as much as half the population of the empire gone, there is a catastrophic shortage of workers. For the first time in centuries, the common laborer, the farmhand, the stevedore has power. They begin to demand higher wages for their work. It is the simple, brutal logic of supply and demand. Justinian's response is to outlaw this logic. He issues an edict that freezes all wages and all prices at their pre-plague levels. He declares it illegal for a worker to demand a higher wage than he earned before the pestilence. He declares it illegal for a baker to charge a higher price for a loaf of bread. Even though the grain to make it is now 10 times more expensive, he is trying to command the economy to return to normal, to bend the new, harsh reality to his imperial will. The result is predictable. The law is universally ignored. It simply creates a thriving black market for everything from labor to food. It is a brilliant plan that instantly makes criminals of every person who simply wants to get paid or buy a meal. Your own life is a testament to this new, broken economy. You are a master mosaicist, one of the finest in the world, but your skill is now useless. Who has the money to commission a great work of art in a city of Ghost the Emperor? Your great patron has no more funds for his churches. The grand project of the Hagia Sophia has ground to a complete halt. Your scaffolding still stands in the great, silent church, a skeleton waiting for a flesh of gold and glass that will now never be applied. The wealthy senators and merchants who once hired you to decorate their villas are dead. Their fortunes now the subject of endless, complicated legal battles between distant, grasping relatives. The church is spending its money not on mosaics, but on charity, on trying to feed the thousands of new orphans and widows created by the plague. You are a master of a luxury craft in a world that can now only afford the barest necessities. Your beautiful, glittering tesserae are worthless. You find yourself wondering, with a humor as black as a plague sore, if you could perhaps trade a small bag of your finest gold leaf tiles for a loaf of bread. You are forced to seek other work to survive. You, the great artist, the master craftsman. Now find yourself competing with common laborers for a day's work, unloading a ship at the docks, or clearing rubble from a collapsed building. Your fine, artist hands, once skilled in the delicate work of placing tiny cubes of glass, are now calloused and raw from hauling stones. It is a profound and deeply humiliating fall from grace. This is the great, unwritten story of the plague of Justinian. It was not just a biological event, it was an economic event of cataclysmic proportions. Future historians will debate its long-term consequences. Was this the moment the classical world of Rome truly ended? Was this the beginning of the so-called Dark Ages? Did the plague create the economic and demographic vacuum that allowed for the rise of Islam and the great Arab conquests in the next century? Looking at the silent workshops and the empty markets of your once great city, you believe that the answer to all of these questions is yes. One day, you walk past the great bronze doors of the Senate House. You remember the city before the plague. You remember the processions of powerful senators in their white togas, the brisk, confident commerce of the forums, the sense of a world at the very peak of its power. Now, the doors are closed. Weeds are growing between the marble steps, and a profound, deathly quiet hangs over the heart of what was once the most powerful empire on earth. You return to the Hagia Sophia. You stand in the center of the vast, unfinished space, your footsteps echoing in the silence. You look up at the small, completed section of your mosaic work on the high arches, the Archangel Gabriel's golden wing. It glitters in a single shaft of light from a high window. It is a small patch of heaven in a world that has become a kind of hell. It is a remnant of a different age. An age of limitless ambition, of boundless wealth, of a confidence that seemed as solid as the foundations of the church itself. You look at its shimmering, defiant beauty, and you understand the full measure of what has been lost. The plague did not just kill your wife, your children, your apprentices. It killed the Golden Age. It killed the dream of a restored Roman Empire. It bankrupted your emperor, and it broke your world. You stand in the silence of the great. Empty church, a lonely survivor in a magnificent tomb. And you are left with the cold, hard, and undeniable truth. The emperor may have survived his fever, but his empire did not. The plague recedes like a great dark tide. Leaving the city of Constantinople cleansed and silent, the air no longer carries the stench of death, but the clean, sharp smell of the sea and the damp earth. You, a survivor, are left standing in the wreckage of your own life, a ghost in a city of ghosts. After the initial, paralyzing shock in the deep, private grief for your lost family and apprentices, a new and more practical fear begins to set in. You are a master craftsman. Your hands know how to create beauty from stone and glass. But in this new, emptied world, you begin to wonder, is there anyone left who can afford to buy beauty? You try to return to your old life. You clean the dust and grime from your workshop. You lay out your tools, your small, sharp hammers, your hardened steel chisels, your trowels for the plaster. You arrange your remaining trays of tesserae, the small cubes of colored glass that are the vocabulary of your art, the shimmering gold, the deep lapis blue, the vibrant ruby red. They are like jewels, waiting for a setting. Your workshop is ready, but the city is not. The silence that was once a sound of terror is now a sound of economic death. The workshops of your fellow artisans, the men you once competed and drank with, are all shuttered. You walk through the coppersmith's quarter, and the rhythmic sound of hammers on metal is gone. You walk through the silk weaver's district, and the clatter of the great looms is silent. It is a city whose skilled hands are mostly dead. This is a new and terrible consequence of the plague, one that you are only now beginning to understand. The pestilence did not just kill people, it destroyed human capital. It erased centuries of accumulated knowledge and skill. A master weaver, a skilled glassblower, a goldsmith when they died. The unique secrets of their craft often died with them. Lost forever. You try to find work. You go first to the greatest patron of all, the emperor. You make your way to the unfinished shell of the Hagia Sophia, but the great construction site is deserted. The imperial building program, the engine that had driven the city's economy for a decade, has ground to a complete halt. The imperial treasury, you hear in the whispers at the forum, is bankrupt. The plague has annihilated the empire's tax base. There is no money for armies, no money for administration, and certainly no money for decorating the house of God with gold. Your great commission is over. The dome will remain a blank, gray expanse of plaster. So you turn to your private patrons. You walk to the great villas of the senators and the wealthy merchants who once vied for your services. You find their homes either empty and sealed, their entire families having been wiped out, or occupied by distant, unfamiliar relatives who have inherited a fortune but have no taste for art. They are busy consolidating their new wealth, not spending it on frivolous decorations. You even go to the patriarch of the church. You offer your services to decorate a smaller church, a local parish. But the church, too, is impoverished. Its resources are now entirely consumed by charity. It is running orphanages for the thousands of children left without parents. It is distributing bread to the starving. The church has no money for golden mosaics. It needs bread, not beauty. You are a master of a luxury art form in a world that can now only afford survival. One day, you receive a summons. It is from a man named Leontius, a merchant who has not only survived, but has profited from the plague. He is a grain merchant, a man who had the foresight to hoard his supplies and who is now selling his grain at astronomically inflated prices to the desperate city. He has become fantastically wealthy through the suffering of others. And now, he wants to buy a piece of the old world's prestige. He wants a mosaic floor for the entrance hall of his new grand villa. You go to meet him. He is a coarse, unpleasant man with small, greedy eyes. He does not appreciate the artistry of your work. He only understands its value as a symbol of status. I want a floor that will make the old senators jealous, he says. His voice thick with arrogance. I want it to be full of gold, and I want it for a good price. He haggles with you over every coin. He questions the cost of your materials. He asks if you can't just use cheaper yellow stone instead of the real gold tesserae. You, who have been praised by bishops and court officials, are now forced to justify your art to this tasteless war profiteer. You feel a profound sense of humiliation. This is what your great craft has been reduced to. Creating a gaudy, ostentatious floor for a man who wouldn't know a masterpiece from a tavern sign. But you need the work. You need the money to live. You agree. You begin the commission, but there is no joy in it. The work feels hollow, soulless. You are no longer creating a vision of heaven. You are creating a rich man's vulgar bauble, your new business plan. You think with a dark and bitter humor is to wait for someone to profit from a disaster and hope they have bad taste. As you work, you see the strange new economy of the post-plague world taking shape around you. There is a catastrophic shortage of labor, with half the population dead. The few surviving farmers and laborers are now in a position of unprecedented power. They can demand higher wages. They can refuse to work for their old masters. You see a landowner from the countryside complaining in the forum that his farmhands are demanding double their old wages to bring in the harvest. And there is nothing he can do. He must pay, or his crops will rot in the fields. But at the same time, the price of everything is soaring. The collapse of trade and agriculture means that basic goods are scarce. The price of a loaf of bread, of a jug of wine, of a piece of cloth, has tripled. It is a world of bizarre economic contradictions. Wages are high, but there is nothing to buy. The few who have goods to sell can demand a fortune. The few who have skills to offer can name their price. But for most people, for the survivors like you whose skills are no longer in demand, it is a world of crushing poverty and inflation. You walk through the artisan quarters of the city, the districts that were once a hive of skilled craftsmanship, and you see only silence and decay. You pass the empty workshops of the ivory carvers. The great elephant tusks that once came on ships from Africa are no longer arriving. The trade routes have been shattered by the plague, and the men who knew the delicate art of carving the ivory are mostly dead. You look into the workshop of a man who was once a master glassblower, famous for creating the deep, cobalt blue glass that you used for the robes of the Virgin Mary in your mosaics. His workshop is dark. His furnaces are cold. He died of the plague, and he took the secret of his famous blue glass with him to the grave. It is a color that may now be lost to the world forever. This is the great, hidden cost of the plague. It is the loss of art, of skill, of knowledge. It is the shattering of the delicate chains of human connection and commerce that create a civilization. Future historians will debate the artistic consequences of this great dying. Did it lead to a dark age? A period of simplified, cruder art? As skills were lost and patronage vanished? Or did the immense trauma of the plague eventually give rise to new, more spiritual, more expressive forms of art? As the survivors tried to make sense of their shattered world, you do not know the answer. You only know that your own beautiful, glittering, and highly skilled craft is now useless. You finish your work on the floor of the grain merchant's villa. He pays you, his coins feeling light and worthless in your hand. The floor is gaudy and ugly, a testament to your own desperation. You return to your silent workshop. You have enough money to survive for a few more months, but you know that there will be no more commissions like this one. There are not enough rich, tasteless men in the city to sustain your art. You look at your hands, the hands that once placed 10,000 tiny pieces of gold to create the face of an angel, and you know you must find a new use for them. You take a small bag of your simplest tesserae the plain, sturdy, single-color stone cubes used for flooring. You go to the marketplace. You do not go to the section where the artists gather. You go to the section where the common laborers wait for a day's work. You stand there, a master mosaicist, a man who once worked on the greatest church in the world, and you offer your services, not as an artist, but as a tile setter. You will repair the broken floors of bakeries. You will patch the crumbling steps of taverns. You will do any work that requires a man who knows how to set a small stone in a bed of plaster. It is the end of your art. It is the end of your life as a creator of beauty. It is the beginning of your new life as a simple craftsman, a repairer of broken things in a broken world. You have survived the plague, but you are beginning to wonder if the part of you that truly mattered has died with it. Your new life as a common laborer is a life stripped down to its barest essentials. The world of art, of beauty, of creating shimmering visions of heaven, is a distant, half-forgotten dream. Your world is now one of grit, of sweat, of the simple, aching reality of your own body. And it is a world of strange and often cruel economic paradoxes. You find work. To your surprise, you find it easily. You, the master artisan. Join the ranks of the city's laborers, offering your hands for any task that needs doing. You spend a week repairing a section of tiled floor in a bakery that was damaged by a falling body during the plague. You spend another week helping to clear the rubble from a collapsed house. The work is hard, it is humbling, but it pays, and it pays astonishingly well. This is the first great, strange truth of the new world you inhabit. There are no people. The plague has created a catastrophic labor shortage. In the docks, you see ship captains pleading with men to unload their cargo, offering triple the normal daily wage. You see landowners from the countryside coming into the city, desperate to hire men to help with the harvest, offering not just silver coins, but a share of the crop itself. The handful of you who have survived, the healthy bodies and the willing hands, have become a precious and scarce commodity. For the first time in your life, Your labor is worth more than the labor of the man standing next to you. You finish your week's work at the bakery and the master baker, a man grateful to have found anyone at all to do the repairs, pays you a sum of silver that would have taken you a month to earn as an apprentice in your old workshop. You hold the heavy coins in your palm, a feeling of dizzying, unfamiliar wealth. For a moment, you feel a flicker of hope. Perhaps you can survive this. Perhaps you can even prosper. And then you try to spend the money. You take your new wealth to the marketplace, the great forum that was once a vibrant, overflowing heart of commerce. It is now a pale shadow of its former self. The stalls are half empty. The variety of goods is gone. You see the farmers who have managed to bring their produce into the city, but they are few, and the prices they are asking are astronomical. The second great truth of the post-plague economy crashes down upon you. Rampant. Crippling inflation, your handful of silver, which should have been a small fortune, barely buys you a loaf of coarse barley bread, a few withered onions, and a small piece of cheese. The price of everything has risen even faster than the wages. Your new wealth is an illusion, a mirage that vanishes the moment you try to use it. You speak to the baker whose floor you have just repaired. He is a man on the edge of despair. He tells you that he cannot get enough grain. The great grain fleets from Egypt, the ships that once fed the entire city, now arrive with only a fraction of their usual cargo. The plague has devastated the farms of the Nile as well, and the ship owners who do have grain are charging prices that are ruinous. I pay 10 times what I paid a year ago for a sack of wheat. He tells you, his face a mask of worry. And the quality? It is terrible. It is full of chaff and weevils, but I must buy it, or I will have no bread to sell. The bread itself is a daily testament to the city's decline. The fine white wheat bread of the old days is a memory, a luxury for the emperor alone. The bread for the common people is now a dark, heavy, gritty loaf made from barley or millet, often cut with ground beans or chickpeas to make the flour stretch. It is the taste of depression, the taste of a world whose supply chains are broken. This is the great economic trap you are all caught in. Wages are high, but food is scarce. Money is plentiful for those who can work, but there is nothing to buy with it. Future historians. Looking back at this period, we'll call it a golden age of the peasant or the golden age of the laborer, because the data will show that wages for common labor reached an all-time high. But you are living the reality behind those numbers, and you know that a high wage is meaningless when a loaf of bread costs a full day's pay. You walk through the city, and you see the social order being turned on its head. You see men who were once common laborers, now flush with silver from the high wages, drinking wine in the taverns, and you see men who were once wealthy merchants or minor nobles. Their fortunes tied up in land they can no longer find tenants for, or in businesses whose suppliers have all vanished, now selling their family's heirlooms in the market just to buy food. The plague has been a great, terrible, and entirely random reshuffling of the deck. You think of your old life. You think of the exotic materials you once worked with. The deep blue glass tesserae, colored with cobalt from Persia, the mother of pearl, from the shells of the Red Sea, the gold, from the mines of Nubia. The great trade routes that brought these treasures to your workshop are now silent. The ships are not sailing. The caravans are not moving. The world has shrunk. The vibrant, cosmopolitan, interconnected world of the Roman Empire has been shattered. Its pieces now isolated and alone. You try to find some small work in your old trade. You hear that a senator, one of the few who has survived with his fortune intact, is renovating his villa. You go to his door, offering your services as a master mosaicist. A servant turns you away. The senator, he tells you, is not spending his money on art. He is spending it on guards for his house, and on stockpiling grain in his cellars. The debate among the scholars of the future will be a long one. Was this economic collapse a temporary shock? A brutal but short-lived depression from which the empire eventually recovered? Or was it a permanent, structural break. The event that marked the true end of the classical Roman economy and the beginning of the more localized, more primitive, and poorer world of the Middle Ages standing in the empty market. Your pouch of useless silver in your hand. You feel you already know the answer. The golden age is over, and it is not coming back. One day, you are at the docks, looking for work, unloading one of the few ships that has arrived. You are standing with a crowd of other men, all hoping for a day's wage. And you see it. It is a grain ship from Egypt. As the crew begins to unload the sacks, you see them, a stream of black rats, scurrying down the mooring ropes and onto the docks, disappearing into the city. You watch them, and you feel a cold dread. These are the descendants of the very creatures that brought the plague to your city in the first place. And they are still here. The ships are still coming. You realize that this is not over. The plague is not a one-time event. It is a permanent new feature of your world. It will come back. The historian Procopius, your contemporary, would document this, writing of how the plague returned again and again every few years for the next 2 centuries, each new wave further weakening the empire, further depressing its economy. The chapter of your life as a great artist is over. The chapter of the empire's golden age is over. A new, darker, and poorer chapter has begun. You get a day's work on the docks. You spend the day hauling sacks of grain. Your back screaming, your hands raw. At the end of the day, you are paid a few small copper follies, the debased currency that is now more common than the old silver coins. You take your wages, and you go to the baker's stall. A small riot has broken out. The baker has run out of bread for the day. There is a shoving match, angry shouts. You stand at the edge of the crowd, your pouch of worthless coins in your hand, your stomach empty. You have worked all day, you have money, and you will go to bed hungry tonight. This is the new economy. This is the new reality. And you know, with a profound and weary certainty, that this is just the beginning of the long, slow decline. The pouch of debased copper coins you earn for a day's labor on the docks feels both heavy and worthless in your hand. It is enough to buy a loaf of the city's course. Expensive bread, but it is not enough to buy back your old life. The silence of your workshop, the memory of your lost apprentices, the ghost of your dead wife and children. These are things that no amount of money can fix. Constantinople, the city of your birth and your triumphs, has become a great, echoing tomb, a monument to your own personal loss. You realize, with a clarity born of grief and hunger, that you cannot stay here. The city is a trap. It is a place of high prices, of scarce food, of constant, painful reminders of the golden age that has been so utterly destroyed. You hear whispers among the other laborers on the docks. Stories carried by the few small coastal traders who still ply their trade. They speak of the countryside. They say it is empty. They say there is land for the taking. Entire farms abandoned. Their owners all taken by the pestilence. They say a man with a strong back and a willing spirit can make a new life for himself out there. Away from the misery of the city, it is a desperate gamble. You are a man of the city. Your hands are trained for the delicate, precise work of placing tiny stones, not for the brutal, back-breaking labor of the plow. But the artist in you is dead. All that is left is the survivor. And so, you make a decision. You will leave Constantinople. You will turn your back on the great, dying city. And you will walk into the empty wilderness of its collapsed heartland. You use the last of your silver to buy a few simple provisions, a sturdy knife, a sack of barley, a small bag of salt. One morning at dawn, you walk out through the great golden gate of the Theodosian walls, the same gate through which conquering emperors once paraded. You do not look back. The journey into the farmlands of Thrace, the region that was once the breadbasket of the capital, is a journey into a silent, green, and desolate world. The great Roman roads, marvels of engineering that once thrummed with the traffic of legions and trade caravans, are now quiet and empty. You walk for days without seeing another living soul. The only sounds are the wind in the long grass and the cry of hawks circling overhead. You pass through the ruins of villages. The stone houses are still standing, their tiled roofs collapsing, their doorways gaping open like silent mouths. You look inside and see the remnants of lives that ended abruptly, a child's wooden toy on the floor, a rusted sickle by the hearth, a loom with a threadbare, half-finished piece of weaving still upon it. The plague has not just killed the people, it has erased their stories, leaving behind only these sad, mundane artifacts, and you see the land itself. It is returning to a state of wildness. The great, irrigated fields that once produced the wheat that fed 1 million people are now overgrown with thorny bushes and weeds. The carefully constructed stone irrigation channels are choked with silt, their life-giving water now forming stagnant. Mosquito-infested pools. The neat olive groves are tangled and untended. It is a process of rewilding, a great green tide that is washing away the works of man. Future historians and paleoclimatologists will debate the environmental impact of this great dying. Did the mass depopulation that followed the great plagues of antiquity lead to a significant period of reforestation across Europe and the Near East? Did the world, for a brief few centuries, become cooler, greener, and wilder, simply because there were no longer enough humans to keep it tamed? Walking through this silent, overgrown landscape, you do not need to wait for their research. You are living the answer. After weeks of walking, you find a place. It is an abandoned farm, nestled in a small, fertile valley. There is a sturdy, if small, stone farmhouse, its roof mostly intact. There is a stream with clean water nearby, and there are fields, overgrown but undeniably fertile. You know from the boundary stones that this land once belonged to a moderately wealthy farmer, a man who would have been part of the colony class, a tenant farmer tied to the land by law and debt. The plague, in its democratic brutality, has freed him from his bonds and has now given his land to you. There is no one to challenge your claim. The landlord is likely dead in his city villa. The tax collector has not been seen in this valley for years. You are the only man here, and so the land is yours. Your new life begins. It is a life of brutal, relentless, and almost entirely unskilled labor. You, the artist whose greatest physical exertion was once lifting a tray of glass tesserae, must now learn the work of a peasant. You must learn to use an axe to clear the thorny brush from your fields. You must learn to use a heavy hoe to break the hard, sun-baked soil. You must learn to clean the silt from the irrigation ditches with your bare, bleeding hands. Your hands, once so nimble and precise, become clumsy, calloused, and strong. Your back, once accustomed to the slight stoop of the artist at his work, is now a constant, screaming ache from the labor of a farmer. You are not just building a farm, you are remaking your own body, transforming it from a vessel of art into an instrument of pure, brute force survival. You find the remains of the farm's previous life, a rusted iron plowshare, the great silent stone wheel of an olive press, now half buried in the earth. These are the tools of a more prosperous, more organized time. You cannot hope to use them. You have no ox to pull the plow. You have no one to help you turn the great stone of the press. Your own technology is more primitive. A digging stick, a sharpened stone, your own 2 hands. You manage to clear a small plot of land, and you plant the barley you carried with you from the city. You learn to read the sky, to predict the rain. You learn to hunt, to trap the small game that has returned to the valley in great numbers. Your nearest neighbors are a family of wolves that has made its den in the ruins of the landowner's villa on a nearby hill. They are quiet neighbors, and you have a relationship based on a mutual, wary respect. The first year is a desperate struggle for survival, but you endure. Your small crop of barley grows. You harvest it, you thresh it, and you grind it between two stones to make a coarse, gritty flour. The first loaf of bread you bake from your own grain, over your own fire, is the most delicious thing you have ever tasted. It is the taste of a victory more profound than any artistic triumph. It is the taste of being alive for a few years. You live this quiet, solitary, and brutally hard life. You have achieved a kind of peace. You are no longer haunted by the ghosts of the city. You are a farmer, a survivor. And then, one day, the ghost of the empire finds you. A man appears on the road that leads into your valley. He is not a traveler or a refugee. He is well-dressed, and he is accompanied by 2 armed guards. He is an imperial tax collector. He tells you that the Emperor Justinian, in his infinite wisdom, has managed to restore a semblance of order to the bureaucracy, and the bureaucracy, as always, requires money. The agent has a ledger. He has the old tax records for this district. He informs you that you are now the registered occupant of this farm, and as such, you owe the imperial treasury 5 years of back taxes, and not just for your own small plot of land. Under the emperor's law of epibole, you are also now responsible for the taxes on all the surrounding abandoned lands. The lands of your dead and forgotten neighbors. You stare at him, speechless. You have survived the plague. You have survived the collapse of your profession. You have clawed a life for yourself out of the wilderness with your own 2 hands. And now, the empire, the distant, bankrupt, and utterly useless institution that did nothing to help you, has sent its agent to present you with a bill. It is a bill so large, so impossibly crushing, that it will ruin you. It will take everything you have built. It will force you off your land and back into the world of destitution you thought you had escaped. You look at the tax collector's smug, implacable face, and you realize that you cannot escape the depression that has consumed your world. The plague may be over, but the brutal, grinding, and inexorable machinery of the state has survived, and it has come to collect its due. The tax collector's demand is not a negotiation. It is a death sentence for the new life you have tried to build. The piece of paper he hands you, with its official seal and its impossible sum, is a stark reminder that you cannot escape the ghost of the Roman Empire. You may have fled its dying capital city, but its tax collectors, the tireless and most enduring agents of the state, have found you. You have no choice. To refuse to pay is to be declared an outlaw. To have what little you own confiscated, and to be thrown off your land, you are once again a servant of the state. Your entire life's labor now dedicated to paying the debts of your dead neighbors to a bankrupt emperor in the years that follow. You live a life of ceaseless, grinding toil. You clear more land, you plant more barley. You work from before the sun rises until after it sets. But you do not work for yourself. You work for the tax collector. Each harvest, he returns. He assesses your crop. He calculates your tax burden. And he takes almost all of it, leaving you with just enough to survive the winter. You have not become a proud, independent farmer. You have become a serf, a tenant farmer whose landlord is the emperor himself, through the tax collector, and through the occasional rare traveler who passes through your valley. You begin to hear news of the wider world, and you learn that your own small, miserable struggle is a microcosm of the great, miserable struggle of the entire empire. The economic depression that you have experienced firsthand is now having devastating, long-term consequences for the very thing that holds the empire together, its military might. You learn that the great, professional armies of the Emperor Justinian, the legions that reconquered Africa and Italy and struck fear into the hearts of the Persians, are crumbling. And they are crumbling for a simple reason. You now understand intimately there are no men, and there is no money. You speak to a recruiting officer who passes through your valley, a man with a desperate, haunted look in his eyes. He is trying to find new recruits for the legions stationed on the eastern frontier. He finds no one. The young men of your valley are all in the plague pits. The few who survived are, like you, tied to their land, their labor essential for survival. There is no one left to fight. The Empire's greatest resource, its vast population of strong peasant boys, has been spent by the plague, and even if they could find the men, the state could no longer afford to pay them. The Imperial treasury is empty. The recruiters who once offered a signing bonus of solid gold solidi now offer only vague promises of land and a meager, often late, salary in debased copper coins. You hear stories of mutinies in the frontier garrisons, of soldiers who have not been paid in years, who have abandoned their posts to become farmers, or more often, to become bandits, preying on the very people they were supposed to protect. The great Roman army, the most disciplined and effective fighting force in the world, is slowly dissolving. And now, you begin to hear the consequences of this military collapse. The news is a litany of disasters, a chronicle of an empire coming apart at the seams. You hear that the great prize of Justinian's reign, the reconquered province of Italy, is being lost. A new tribe of Germanic barbarians, the Lombards, has swarmed down from the Alps. The small Roman garrisons there, decimated by the plague and weakened by neglect, are unable to stop them. City after city is falling. The great work of the generals Belisarius and Narses, the bloody 20-year war to reclaim Italy for the empire, is being undone in a matter of months. You hear that in North Africa, the province that had been reconquered from the Vandals. The situation is just as dire. The Berber tribes of the desert, seeing the weakness of the Roman garrisons, are now raiding with impunity, burning the farms and sacking the towns. And in the east, the empire's ancient and powerful rival, the Sasanian Persian Empire, is stirring. They see the weakness of the Roman legions on their border. They see an empire ravaged by pestilence and economic collapse, and they see an opportunity. The long peace that Justinian had purchased with a humiliating tribute of gold is over. The Persian king is preparing for a new war, a war that he is now confident he can win. The great dream of your emperor, the Renovatio Imperii, the restoration of the old Roman Empire to its full, former glory, is dying. It is dying in the fields of Italy, in the deserts of Africa, and on the eastern frontier. But you know that the fatal blow was not struck by a Lombard spear or a Persian arrow. The fatal blow was struck years ago by the invisible army of the plague, the pestilence that shattered the empire's economy and broke its ability to wage war. This is the great debate that will occupy the historians of the future. They will look at the reign of the Emperor Justinian, and they will be dazzled by its brilliance. They will see the great conquest, the magnificent buildings like your own Hagia Sophia, the codification of the laws. But they will also see the disastrous aftermath, and they will argue, was Justinian's reign a final, glorious golden age of Roman power? Or was it an act of profound, hubristic overreach? Did his endless, costly wars and his extravagant building projects so overstretch the empire's resources that he left it fragile, brittle, and fatally unprepared for the twin shocks of the plague and the renewed Persian threat that would follow you? A man who once decorated his glorious church and who now must pay his ruinous taxes. Know the answer. He built a magnificent house, but he left no foundation to support it. Your own life is a small, quiet testament to this great collapse. You have survived, you have food, but you live in a state of constant, low-level fear. The rule of law, the peace of the empire, is a distant memory. Your valley is now plagued by bandits, often former soldiers, who prey on the isolated farmsteads. You learn to barricade your door at night. You sleep with a heavy axe by your bed. You have escaped the city only to find a new kind of danger in the wilderness. One day, you hear the news that the small Roman fort at the mouth of your valley, the last bastion of imperial authority in this region, has been abandoned The garrison has been withdrawn. They are needed elsewhere, to fight a losing battle against the Lombards or the Persians. The news is a final, devastating blow. The thin thread that connected your small, isolated world to the great. Protective power of the Roman Empire has been cut. You are now completely and utterly on your own. You stand on the small hill behind your farmhouse. The same hill where the tax collector found you. You look out over your valley. It is quiet. It is green. It is yours. But it is also unprotected. An island of fragile order in a rising sea of chaos. You look at your hands. The hands of an artist. The hands of a farmer. And you realize that you must now learn a new trade. The trade of a soldier. You must learn to defend your own small patch of land, your own life. Because the great army that once guaranteed the peace of your world can no longer do so. The army cannot march. The empire is a ghost, and the dark ages have well and truly begun. The tax collector leaves your small valley with his cart full of your hard-won grain, leaving you with nothing but the bitter taste of injustice and enough food to survive another winter. The years that follow settle into a new kind of rhythm. A rhythm of grim, relentless, and lonely survival. You are no longer an artist, or even a laborer. You are a subsistence farmer. A serf to a distant and bankrupt emperor. Your life a constant struggle against the weeds in your field and the ever-present threat of the taxman. You grow old. The fire of your youth. The ambition that drove you to become a master artisan in the greatest city on earth is now just a faint gray ember. Your hands, which once created shimmering angels from gold and glass, are now gnarled and stiff from a lifetime of gripping a hoe. Your body aches and you are alone. 1 year, after a particularly meager harvest, you make a decision. You cannot die here, in this empty valley, a forgotten man in a forgotten corner of the empire. You must see the city one last time. You must see what has become of the world you lost. You must see the great church, the Hagia Sophia, the monument to the golden age you helped to create. You are an old man now. You pack a small bag with some bread and cheese. You take up your walking staff, and you begin the long journey back to Constantinople. The journey is a pilgrimage through a world that has been permanently scarred. The countryside is still quiet, still empty. The ghost villages are still there. Their stone walls now almost completely consumed by ivy and the roots of trees. The great Roman roads are cracked and overgrown. The world has not recovered. It has simply settled into a new, poorer, and smaller version of itself. After many weeks of walking, you see them on the horizon. The great, triple line of the Theodosian walls, the magnificent fortifications that have protected your city for a century. They are still as powerful and as imposing as you remember. But as you get closer, you see the signs of decay. Sections of the wall are crumbling. Some of the great towers are unmanned, their gates barred shut. The great shield of the empire is still strong, but it is beginning to rust. You enter the city through the Golden Gate, and you step into a city of ghosts. The Constantinople you have returned to is not the vibrant, teeming, confident metropolis of your youth, nor is it the terrified, silent tomb it was in the immediate aftermath of the plague. It is something else now, something stranger and more melancholy. It is a city that is haunted by the ghost of its own glorious past. The population has never recovered. The city that once held 500,000 souls now holds perhaps a third of that. You walk through entire neighborhoods that are still largely deserted. You see the grand villas of the senators you once knew. Their marble facades now stained and cracked. Their windows boarded up. You see the workshops of the artisans, still silent, still empty. You walk to the great hippodrome, the heart of the city's public life. You remember it from your youth, a place of thunderous noise, of the roar of 100,000 spectators screaming for their favorite chariot team, the greens or the blues. Now, it is silent. Grass grows between the stone seats of the great amphitheater. A flock of goats grazes peacefully on the track where the chariots once raced for the glory of the emperor. It's a bold new approach to urban park management. This is the great, defining feature of the new Constantinople. It is a city that is too big for its own population. It is a city of magnificent, decaying monuments, a collection of beautiful, oversized clothes for a body that has become withered and small. The survivors cannot afford the upkeep of the Golden Age. You see evidence of this everywhere. You see work crews not building new monuments, but dismantling old ones. You see them carefully removing the marble columns from a ruined classical temple, a relic from the city's pagan past. They are not doing it to destroy the temple. They are doing it to reuse the materials, to build a new, smaller Christian church somewhere else. This practice, this use of spolia, is a sign of the times. The city is literally eating its own past to build its future. Future historians will debate the very concept of this era. Is this the decline and fall of the Roman Empire, or is it simply a transformation into something else? Something different is a smaller, poorer, but perhaps more resilient and spiritual world, truly a darker one. You do not have the grand perspective of a historian. You only have the quiet, aching sadness of a man who remembers the grandeur that has been lost. Your final pilgrimage is to the Hagia Sophia. The great church still dominates the city's skyline from the outside. It is as magnificent as you remember. But when you step inside, you see the truth. The great central space is as breathtaking as ever. The dome still soars, a man-made heaven of stone and light. But the work of decoration, the work that was your life, was never properly completed. The vast expanses of the upper walls and the ceilings are not covered in glittering gold. They are covered in plain plaster, or in simple, hastily painted frescoes of saints. The emperor, after the plague, never regained the wealth needed to finish the mosaics as they were originally designed. The project was abandoned, left half done. You walk through the great, echoing space. It is mostly empty, only a handful of worshippers scattered among the massive pillars. You find your way to the section of the great arches where you and your team worked. All those years ago, you look up, and there it is. Your work, the wing of the Archangel Gabriel. After all these years, after the plague, the famine, the depression, the long, slow decay of the empire, the gold still shines. The tesserae you placed with your own hands still glitter in the shafts of light from the high windows. As brilliant and as eternal as the day you set them. It is a small, perfect fragment of a lost world. A piece of the Golden Age, preserved in a new age of iron and rust. It is beautiful, and it is heartbreaking. You, the artist, have outlived the civilization that created you. You have come home to a city of ghosts, to a city of magnificent ruins. You sit on a cold stone bench in the great, empty church, and you look up at the single, glittering, golden wing you made. It is a monument to a world of ambition and wealth that is gone forever, and you are its last, lonely, living witness. The plague did not just kill the people. It killed the future you were all so certain you were building. You are an old man now, living out your final years in a city you barely recognize. You spend your days sitting on the stone benches of the forums, or walking slowly along the sea walls. A ghost haunted by the memory of a more golden, more vibrant world. Your work as an artisan is long over. The city has no use for new mosaics. It is too busy trying to keep the old ones from falling off the walls. Your world, which once felt like the very center of a vast and interconnected universe, has become a small, quiet, and insular place. The great economic depression that followed the plague was not a temporary crisis. It was a permanent reshaping of your civilization. And the most profound change you have witnessed is this: the world has become smaller. You make your way down to the harbor of the Golden Horn, the great natural harbor that was once the beating heart of the world's commerce. You remember what it was like in your youth. in the years before the pestilence, and you remember a great, dense forest of mass, hundreds of ships at a time, packed so tightly together you could almost walk from one side of the harbor to the other across their decks. You remember the smells, the sharp scent of cedar wood from the Levant, the heady perfume of spices from the Orient, the rich, earthy smell of Egyptian grain, the tangy aroma of wine from the Greek islands. You remember the sounds, a babel of 100 different languages, the shouts of the dockworkers, the creaking of the great cranes, the constant, busy hum of a city that was the nexus of global trade. Now, you stand on the same quay, and you see only silence and empty water. The harbor is not completely deserted. There are a few ships, but they are small. Coastal trading vessels, shabby-looking fishing boats, the occasional ferry from the towns on the other side of the Bosphorus, the great, ocean-going merchant ships. The ones that connected you to the far corners of the world are gone. The great trade routes have withered and died. The plague did not just kill the people in your city, it killed the people everywhere. It killed the sailors who manned the ships, the merchants who financed the voyages, the camel drivers who led the caravans across the deserts, the farmers who grew the grain in the fields of Egypt. The entire, intricate, and fragile web of human connection that created the Roman world has been torn to shreds. You walk through the great marketplace near the harbor. The change here is just as stark. You remember the stalls laden with treasures from every corner of the earth. You remember the silk merchants, their bolts of shimmering cloth brought overland on the great silk road from the distant land of the Sares. You remember the spice vendors, their tables a colorful and fragrant landscape of pepper from India, cloves from the Spice Islands, and cinnamon from Ceylon. You remember the sellers of papyrus from Egypt, of fine glassware from Syria, of amber from the cold lands of the Baltic. Now, the market sells only local goods. The stalls are filled with the coarse wool of Thracian sheep, with simple, unadorned local pottery, with the common vegetables grown in the small gardens outside the city walls. The exotic has vanished from your world. The taste of pepper is now a fading memory on your tongue. The feel of silk is a luxury that no longer exists. You see scribes writing not on smooth, imported papyrus, but on expensive, locally made parchment, or, more often, on scraped and reused wooden tablets. The world has run out of paper. Your own art is a testament to this great shrinking. The mosaics you created in the Hagia Sophia were a global enterprise. The gold for your tesserae came from the mines of Nubia. In the deep south, the rich. Blue glass was colored with cobalt from Persia. The green stones were serpentinite from the quarries of Greece. The deep reds were porphyry from Egypt. You were an artist whose palette was the entire known world. Now, an artisan would be lucky to find enough colored clay in the local hills to create a simple, dull pattern as you sit by the quiet harbor. You grapple with the great historical question that your own life has posed. When did the world you were born into, the world of classical antiquity, the world of the Roman Empire, truly end? Was it when the barbarian armies sacked the city of Rome in the West, 100 years before you were born? No. You think to yourself, the city of Rome may have fallen, but the idea of Rome, the Roman world, the great interconnected Mediterranean civilization, lived on, right here in Constantinople. The true end, you realize, was this quiet, slow, and undramatic withering of the connections that held the world together. The end was not a great battle, and it was an empty harbor. The end was not the arrival of a conquering army. It was the non-arrival of the grain ship from Egypt. The Dark Ages did not begin with a bang. They began with a slow, creeping, and irreversible silence. This is the great debate that future historians will have. The debate about periodization, about the arbitrary lines they draw in the story of the past. You are a man who has lived through one of those lines. You have lived in the before, and you are now living in the long, quiet after. You see a group of young men, sailors from a local fishing boat, mending their nets on the quay. They are strong and healthy, but their world is small. For them, a great journey is a week-long trip to a neighboring port on the Black Sea. You remember the old sailors of your youth? Men who had seen Alexandria and Antioch and Carthage? Men who had stories of strange animals and stranger peoples. A young man now boasts of being a great traveler because he has been to the next province. The loss is not just one of goods. It is a loss of knowledge, of ideas. With the trade routes closed, the flow of information has ceased. You no longer hear news of the goings-on in the Persian court, or of the new kings of the Franks and Gaul. The world beyond the empire's shrunken borders has become a blank space on the map again, a realm of myth and rumor. Each region of the old empire has turned inward, left to fend for itself. The great unified civilization has fractured into 100 small, isolated pieces. You get up from your bench and begin your slow walk home. You have lived to see the greatest city in the world become a provincial backwater. You have lived to see the great, wide world of your youth shrink into a small, quiet, and fearful neighborhood. You look out at the sea, the great highway that once brought the world to your doorstep. It is no longer a highway. It is a barrier, a great, empty, and lonely expanse of water. And on the other side of it is a world that you no longer know, and that no longer knows you. You are a very old man. You have outlived your emperor, Justinian. You have outlived the memory of the Golden Age. You now live in a world that you helped to survive, but which you no longer recognize. The city of Constantinople is still the greatest city in the world, but it is a diminished world. It is a quieter, poorer, and more fearful place than the one you were born into. You spend your final years in a small house, not far from your old workshop. Your days are quiet. You have your memories, and you have a small wooden box. Inside it are a few dozen of your old tesserae. The small cubes of glass you saved from your ruined workshop all those years ago. A few pieces of deep blue from Syria, a few of green marble from Greece, and a handful of the precious gold leaf tiles. Sometimes you take them out and hold them in your palm. They are like solid, captured pieces of a lost brighter world. This is the final, most enduring legacy of the plague of Justinian. This is the great and terrible lesson that your long, hard life has taught you. The pestilence did not just kill people. It did not just destroy families and empty cities. It killed ambition. You remember the world before the plague. It was a world that believed in itself. It was a world of immense, almost arrogant, confidence. Your emperor, Justinian, believed he could reconquer the entire Roman Empire. And for a time, he almost did. Your architects believed they could build a dome that would float on light. And they did. And you. You were a man who believed you could paint the inside of that dome with the very fires of heaven. That world of boundless confidence and limitless ambition is gone. It died in the plague pits. It was buried in the mass graves. The generation that survived the plague was a generation of pragmatists, of survivors. Their ambition was not to build new, magnificent churches. It was to rethatch the roof of their own small house, to have enough grain to survive the winter, to raise their children in a world that was safe from the fevers and the famines. The empire you now live in is a more cautious and more defensive one. It is no longer expanding. It is struggling to hold on to what it has left. The great armies are smaller now, the frontiers more porous. The world has become a more dangerous place. You walk through the city and you see the evidence of this diminished ambition everywhere. You see the great, magnificent churches and palaces that Justinian built. But you see that their roofs are leaking, that their marble facades are stained and cracked. They are too large, too magnificent for the smaller, poorer city to properly maintain. They are beautiful, decaying relics of a more glorious time. You visit a new church, one built after the plague, and you, the master artisan. Look at the mosaics. They are crude. Simple things. The artists have used common colored stone, not the brilliant. Imported glass of your day, they have used yellow paint and gold dust, not the solid, shimmering gold leaf of your masterpieces. The skill, the wealth. The access to the materials of a global empire is all gone. The historians of the future. They will call this the beginning of the Dark Ages. They will talk of the end of classical antiquity and the birth of the medieval world. They will debate its causes, the barbarian invasions, the rise of Islam, the schism between the Eastern and Western churches. But you know the truth. You know when the world truly changed. It changed in the spring of 542 AD, when the grain ships from Egypt arrived with their invisible cargo of death. It changed in the silence of the empty workshops, in the abandoned fields, in the withered trade routes. The great, vibrant, interconnected world of Rome did not die with a bang. It died with a long, slow, economic fever. You think about your own life. You were a man who created beauty from the wealth of an empire. You took the gold of Africa, the glass of Syria, the stones of Greece, and you transformed them into a vision of heaven. After the plague, you became a man who survived by his own two hands, a farmer who created life from a small patch of earth. You have been both an artist of a golden age and a peasant of a dark one. And now, you are simply an old man, sitting in his quiet room. You take one of your golden tesserae from its box. You hold the small glass cube up to the light of your oil lamp. It glitters with the same pure, incorruptible fire that it held all those years ago. When you pressed it into the wet plaster of the Hagia Sophia's great dome, it is a thing of immense beauty and of immense cost. And you understand the final, simple truth. The gold, the art, the ambition, the great, soaring churches, the dream of a restored Roman Empire. It was all built on a foundation of a single, crucial, tragically fragile resource people. A world teeming with enough farmers to grow the grain, enough sailors to man the ships, enough merchants to risk the trade, enough soldiers to guard the frontiers, and enough artisans to create the beauty. The plague took the people, and in doing so, it took everything else. It left behind an emptier, poorer, and smaller world. A world that could no longer afford to dream in gold. You close your hand over the small, glittering piece of your past, your miserable beautiful, and long story is over. You have borne witness to the death of an age, and now it is time for you to rest. The old artisan closes his hand over the small, golden tile, and the light from his lamp seems to dim. The great, echoing spaces of the Hagia Sophia, the bustling harbors of Constantinople, the silent, overgrown fields of Thrace, let them all fade now into the soft, quiet darkness. His long life of witnessing is over. His story is complete, and the profound peace of a journey's end settles over him. And over you. Leave the world of fallen empires and lost golden ages behind. Return to the simple, present, and unshakable reality of your own quiet room. The air here is calm. The world outside is at peace. You are safe, and you are comfortable. The great, dramatic tides of history are a distant, silent sea. Feel the gentle weight of your own body, a comforting anchor in the stillness of the night. Your breathing is a slow and easy rhythm, a quiet, personal song of rest. With each breath, feel the last of your thoughts, the last of the day's concerns. Drift away like smoke. There are no more stories to follow, no more lessons to be learned. There is only this moment, this deep and profound quiet. The darkness behind your eyelids is a soft and welcoming harbor. It is a place of absolute safety, of dreamless, restorative peace. Allow yourself to be guided by the gentle current of sleep, to be carried away from the shore of consciousness and out into the calm. Silent waters of the night, there is nothing required of you now but to let go, to surrender, and to rest.